I'm Duy. Before I give this speech, I want to say that I'm not against same-sex marriage, and I have no choice but to give this speech. To start off, according to Ryan, he states that DOMA, the Defense Marriage Act, violates the right of Americans, and U.S. citizens are treated unequally under federal law. I'm here today to claim that U.S. citizens are treated equally, and DOMA is not violating any rights. To start with Ryan's first claim, without any evidence or legal authority, Ryan stated that DOMA violated the 14th Amendment, with no evidence or believable source to back up his statement. I found his information unreliable. I want to prove that DOMA does not violate the 14th Amendment or any equal rights. So what is 14th Amendment? According to the Constitution, 14th Amendment is known as an Equal Rights Amendment or Equal Protection Amendment. This amendment allows equal protection to all Americans under the law. DOMA is a federal law, has not violated any equal rights, nor had violated any marriage right. Gay and straight are treated equally, and both sides has same marriage right. For example, gay man is free to get married as long he marry a woman. Similarly, straight men are not allowed to marry another man. To me, I don't see any sides being treated unequally. Moving on to Ryan's second claim, he stated that same-sex marriages cannot be recognized by federal government because of DOMA has tied their hand, and they cannot do anything about this. This is not true because according to the 10th Amendment, state has power reserved to them to make their own law. According to ABC News, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Iowa, Vermont, New Hampshire, New York, Maine, Maryland, Washington, Rhode Island, and Delaware, those are the states allow same-sex marriages, and DOMA are not affecting those states. This proved that his point is invalid, and states that are under DOMA because they chose to, not because they cannot do anything about it. As Ryan's final point, he rephrased that provision of DOMA allows same-sex marriages to be recognized in a different degree of state governments, violating the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution. And this allows states to do whatever they want with same-sex marriages, and this is unconstitutional according to him. To counter his final point, let's go back and look at the 10th Amendment and Section 3 of DOMA. According to Bill of Rights, the 10th Amendment states the power are not delegated to the United States by Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the state, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Since the power reserved to the states have the right to do whatever they want with same-sex marriage, and this is constitutional. Moving on to Section 3 of DOMA. Section 3 of DOMA prevents federal government from recognizing any marriages between gay or lesbian couple for a purpose of federal laws or programs, even if those couples are considered legal marriage by the home state. Because we are living in a democracy country, DOMA was passed by majority vote. Since DOMA was passed and became a law, states are under DOMA must follow rules, and that are stated in DOMA. Once again, this is constitutional because of the 10th Amendment. To wrap it up, I want to say that DOMA is constitutional and all U.S. citizens are treated equally. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to try and keep these relatively quick. You start off identifying what the proposition is and what the secondary claims are. That's relatively clear. You never really identify what DOMA is. I think everybody probably remembers, but you just keep referring to it by the acronym. You might want to say it at the beginning of the speech. There's no evidence on the first point. That's your argument, that the advocate didn't provide any evidence on the first point, which is, I think, a good argument to make. But what you need is some evidence that shows that there are legal scholars who think that DOMA is consistent with the 14th Amendment, that it doesn't have these particular violations that the advocate claims. I think you've got an okay argument here that in essence everybody's treated the same. They're just required to follow the same rules. What they don't like is the rules. I think that's a pretty reasonable argument to make, although you're dependent on a hypothetical example on that. This might have been an interesting interpretation to get from a legal scholar, for instance, that gay men are free to marry, but they're limited to marrying women, which is what all marriages are, which is what the whole act is attempting to define. On the second point, on the 10th Amendment, you basically just read the 10th Amendment and kind of give us your interpretation of what's going on there. I think we could use some examples of how states do reserve rights, and they've done these kinds of things without violating federal rules and without the federal rules having to recognize them. But I don't get any examples here. I just get your interpretation on this. On the full faith and credit argument, basically it's the same argument that's going on here. I don't think you want to start by announcing your position on the issue. That's not really relevant. That's like the defense attorney standing up and saying, look, I'm just being paid to defend this guy. Here's my arguments. That doesn't enhance your credibility. Just tell us what the argument is. You may not like the argument. Just tell us what the argument is, though. Here's the position that might be critical of this particular issue. All right. Thank you.